The best part about McClane is that he's always a reluctant hero as well. He's just a guy who got invited to a Christmas party by mistake. But when the shit hits the fan at that Christmas party, there's nobody else on this bracket that I would rather have on the case than John McClane. He's a guy who can figure out what your game is and a guy who won't stop coming at you until he's won.
Also, he's got amazing infiltration and stealth skills. These are really important in investigation. For instance, he sneaked into a highly guarded military facility in order to warn Dr. Manhattan and Silk Spectre. He deduces pretty instantly that someone might be picking off masked heroes in order to do some horrible, nefarious deed, and of course, he ends up being right.
Hello, everyone. You clicked on the video. You know what this is. It's time for the semi-final round of Detective Wars. To my right and your left, we have Clint Gage defending John McClane, having triumphed over Veronica Mars in the first rounds. And here, to my left, your right, we have Dave Lacey defending Rorschach, who defeated, of course, who did you defeat? I forgot.
I defeated Marge Gunderson, yes.
That was kind of an easy one. All right, so there you have it. This is today's matchup. Who will triumph and proceed to the finals? You vote, you decide.
Did we already have the debate? That felt like an outro.
Great.
Oh God, I missed it.
The coin sent me a telegram, and he told me that Clint is going first. Clint, you have 2 minutes for your opening argument after I unlock your phone and take away that picture of your beautiful baby. 2 minutes. Why is John McClane the best detective? Tell me why, starting now.
So here's the thing that I think gets overlooked the most about John McClane as a detective. The crimes we've seen him solve are just a small portion of his career as a detective. He's been promoted up to lieutenant detective in the NYPD based on his skills as a traditional police detective. And in both Die Hard and Die Hard with a Vengeance, we get clues, we get lines from other characters that talk about how good a cop he actually is. So we know that he's really good at his job and he's well respected outside of what we specifically see in the movies. So the thing that gets overlooked, like I said, in the Die Hard movies is that he is solving these crimes as they happen. His biggest cases, when he's at his most impressive, the ones that we see in the movies, they're all happening on the fly. And in the movies, we don't get a John McClane that like shows up to a crime scene, looks at a dead body, and then tries to solve the case. That's the McClane that exists in the backstory of John McClane. That's the McClane that keeps getting promoted in spite of some what are honestly pretty unpleasant personality traits. And I think that's maybe the most important thing to keep in mind, particularly in this tournament, in this bracket with all these detectives who get called in after crimes happen. McClane is as good a cop as any on the job, but his real strengths come out when it matters most, when the stakes are super high in the moment. Rorschach, though, and I'll grant you, he's a good detective. He's put a lot of people away. That's wonderful. So has McClane. The thing that sets them apart, don't give me that look. Don't give me that look until you rebuttal. The thing that sets them apart is where McClane is 5-0 when it comes to these big, elaborate, villainous plots, right? And Rorschach, he's 0 for 1. Yeah, he figured out what Veidt was up to, he figured out the plan, but ultimately he wasn't able to stop it.
All right, McClane the superior detective because he detects in real time. Your fedora will not make your argument for you, Lacey, so you've got 2 minutes. Begin.
Okay, well, the hat was my whole plan, so I'm just gonna have to go with this. You know, Rorschach is a great detective because in this world of Watchmen, he is the only person that put all the pieces together. The cops were completely clueless who the comedian was. That was going nowhere. Night Owl, his former partner, didn't even want to bother investigating anything. And the one guy who could have prevented everything from happening was often Mars being emo with his blue Wayne waving around. But Rorschach was the guy there, the guy to put all the pieces together. Also, Rorschach follows clues, he interrogated suspects, and he was the key to unlocking Veidt's master plan. Now, I think a lot of people need to remember that people think of Rorschach as this vigilante, which he is for a time in Watchmen, but he was a legal crime fighter for a long time, and he took a big gouge out of organized crime while working with Night Owl that time. And on top of that, he's a master of disguise. Now, I think this is one of the main, really important things for someone who actually investigates. Not someone who just kind of runs in and shoots everybody and smokes a cigarette. Someone who's actually investigating, they have to be able to go unseen in public. And the thing about Rorschach is he's got this crazy disguise where he plays a madman with an end is nigh sign. Everyone avoids that guy, so he can hide in plain sight. Not only that, but like none of the other Watchmen even know who he is. Not even Night Owl, his real only main friend in this world. He doesn't even know his true identity. Other than that, he's an expert in hand-to-hand combat, which does come in handy because he doesn't carry a gun. He doesn't just unload a Beretta into any guy who comes near him. You know, he also is very durable. He not only like survives a lot of like hand-to-hand combat, but every time he gets teleported by Dr. Manhattan, he doesn't throw up like Silk Spectre. You know, he's just this great detective. He wears the classic detective wardrobe of the trench coat and the hat. What's more detective than that?
So, 1 minute for your rebuttal. Begin.
I mean, you want to talk about hand-to-hand combat? Like, look at the people that McClane has bested hand-to-hand combat. People who are clearly like bigger, more well-trained. McClane is he's basically unstoppable. He beats up Carl, who's a super badass in the first one. He beats up a whole team of commandos in the second one. In the third one, he beats up that tall that Addams Family mother. In the fourth one, he takes out some like weird ninjutsu guy who's like flying all over the place. So like, McClane can handle himself. That's not an area where Rorschach is clearly better than McClane at all. And in terms of like this, I like to measure things in getting the job done, right? Like maybe McClane doesn't blend in, doesn't hide in plain sight. Who cares if he doesn't hide in plain sight if he gets the job done? And McClane consistently gets the job done every time.
McClane, get her done attitude.
Yeah.
1 minute for rebuttal.
All right. So listen, John McClane is an awesome action hero. And you know what? Yeah, I'm not going to deny that, but this isn't action wars. This is detective wars. And I think as a detective, he's at best okay, all right? Like you said before, you actually made my point for me. He's never had to show up to a crime scene with no knowledge of what happened, collect evidence, and work a case. He's always dropped into a crime in progress, and he basically just kills everybody. I don't think he's ever even tried to arrest anybody. He just straight up murders people. And on top of that, the only reason, like one of like his great deductive skills was catching Simon in Die Hard with a Vengeance, where he literally throws a prescription bottle at him with his freaking address on it. I mean, there's a difference between following clues and being able to read. John McClane can read, which is great. That doesn't make him a great detective. And frankly, the most troubling thing about John McClane is his total disregard for innocent life. In A Good Day to Die Hard, he seriously crushes people with his stolen SUV while driving down the Russian freeway.
Time.
He kills innocent people.
Look, McClane is a murderer in the sense that everybody in every action movie that's made now is a murderer because every building falls over. A Good Day to Die Hard is a terrible goddamn movie, and I find it hard to hold that against McClane as a detective.
How?
Because it's just so stupid and bad,
Rorschach
and none of it makes
kills
sense.
2 people, right? 2 people in Watchmen. They're both bad guys. McClane literally drives on top of cars, and there are screaming women, and he goes, "Sorry, ma'am," while he's crushing them.
Yeah, they don't die.
And then he also hits the bad guy's truck into oncoming lanes, into a bunch of cars. There's no saying how many people he kills. Look, and in another country, international incident, frankly, good sir, that makes the guy you're defending a terrorist.
Dave, you're trying to have it both ways here. Because look, McClane, you're saying that Rorschach killed 2 people in the movies.
Yeah.
He killed way more than 2 people in his entire career. All right? And then you're saying that I can't even talk about, like you're discounting McClane's entire career as a detective in the argument.
Well, we never really see or hear, like, what are the times you talk about people are like, wow, that guy's a great detective? I would say he's anything but. He's only on the job in 1 movie. In the other movie, he's like suspended. He's such an antisocial, like, problem cop that they have him suspended. He's got a hangover through the entire movie.
Yeah, and he's still the guy that has to come in and save the fucking day because it's like what
Simon used him as a tool.
And he did it. I mean, that's the other thing that like drove me crazy in the first debate too. It's like, why is it that like getting a clue and interpreting it and then using said clue to go and stop the bad guy, why does that count against John McClane? He gets a clue, he acts on the clue, and he saves the fucking day.
I mean, I'll give you Die Hard, the second Die Hard movie, he does some decent detective work. But other than that, most of the time, he just kind of gets thrown in this like action scenario where he's the good guy, whereby he has a badge and he kills everybody. But he does very little detective work, Clint, honestly.
Let me tell you about a guy who did a lot of detective work and still, like half of New York City blows up. His name's Walter Kovacs, goes by Rorschach.
You know what's funny? I didn't know we were in saving the world
We're in
debate.
getting the job done.
No. We're in detective wars.
Yeah,
Nothing
detective
about
wars.
detective
He is a detective
is stopping
that didn't
an
get the
evil
job done.
annihilation thing, okay? And also, by the way, he's not going to get away with it because Rorschach's journal is out there. People are going to find out that Veidt did it. So at the end of the day, Veidt's plan still won't matter. And listen, I'm not saying John
still won't
McClane.
matter. You're talking about running over people in Russia, and it still doesn't matter that on Rorschach's watch, half of New York got blown up.
Okay, so you're
Look
saying,
at all those people that died.
Okay, wait a second.
No,
so
you
want
want to talk about body counts?
John McClane actually running over people and killing them is the same as Rorschach not being able to
anybody
stop.
in that car.
Are you
know
kidding
damn
me?
well.
Are you kidding me?
Movie logic. He did not kill anybody in that car.
I know you like to live in this fantasy world
well.
where John McClane is not a psychopath who just shoots first and asks questions later.
Psychopath?
He's
You want to talk about
psychopath? He is
Thank you for opening that
100%
door.
a psychopath.
Rorschach is so fucked up. He's so like morally questionable. Because I understand what the mask means. Like the mask is actually a really interesting device narratively.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't have any bearing on his ability as a detective. But the mask, like being black and white and constantly shifting, like he's such a black and white guy. But that meaning, his interpretation of black and white, right versus wrong, like is constantly changing. So he's a crazy person.
No, I would
and that's
say that.
always changing, so you never know where you're at with it.
No, that's not
McClane
true. He's got a very
consistent.
strict.
He's consistent as all hell. He's always the guy who's like, I'm the guy that has to do this because there's nobody else to do it right now. They say that explicitly.
He revels
explicitly.
in it. He says it because he's deluded himself into believing he's the only guy who can do it. But in number 4, he's like, I'm the guy, I'm the hero. You know what that gets you? That gets you like, your family leaving you and stuff. He has, his only priority is battle.
You misread his entire thing. He's sitting there saying, like, I tell you what, it gets, like, being a hero is not all it's cracked up to be, is what he's saying. Yeah. He's not saying, like, oh, hey, man, it's great that my family left. Like, that's stupid. Yeah, that would be a psychopath. That's not what he's saying.
He revels in the bloodshed. We all revel because it's like, oh, he's so cool and badass. But when you actually look at John McClane, he's clearly got antisocial personality disorder.
As opposed to who? Rorschach, who's a super nice guy?
And by the way, Rorschach could do everything John McClane did in those movies and without a gun. And there's no Santa Claus, too.
What?
I'm just saying, your delusions of John McClane.
I got a kid might be watching this. John McClane, how is it a delusion that John McClane is, how many lives has he saved? Millions.
He has saved a few lives.
Millions.
He has saved a few lives.
How many lives did Rorschach save?
He also crushed
like
Marge.
none, because Veidt still blew up New York.
He blew up more in New York if you want to get technical. But still, he blew up.
I was being generous.
Still, he put 50 people in jail, bro. 50 people. Over 50
like
people.
Like McClane hasn't. He's been a detective for 30 years.
No, McClane ever arrested anybody.
No, see, there you go again. You're discounting when I use the backstory and ignoring his backstory completely. You're trying to tell me that Rorschach has only killed 2 people ever?
Tell me one scene. That's all they've ever shown in the movie.
That's all they've ever shown in the movie.
That's all they ever shown in the movie.
Look at his character.
I can't
Look
use
at
the
who
comic
he
book.
is. I'm not talking about comic book. I'm talking about his backstory in the movie.
I can't make stuff up for my argument.
You're trying to tell me he never killed anybody else ever.
Not what they say in the movie. I can't use other sources,
You're
bro.
not even listening to me. It's not talking about other sources. I'm talking about his character in the movie.
So you want me to assume that he murdered other people?
Yeah. In the same way, we should all.
Just like you want to assume
in the same way, we should all assume that John McClane is a good detective. And no, he doesn't revel in.
All right, I'm gonna stop you guys there. I think it's you guys have definitely had a heated debate, spirited discussion, devolved into who's a bigger psychopath. But we're still gonna call this Detective Wars. So there will be a comment below this video or to the side, depending on whether you're on a tablet or a computer. I don't know what you're on, but there's a comment. And it says, like this comment if John McClane wins. If you think Rorschach wins, like the comment that says, like if Rorschach wins, and then you will have fulfilled your promises. Be sure to check out our other episode of Detective Wars semifinals that went right along with this video. It is Batman versus Sherlock Holmes, which should be quite interesting. And make sure you vote on that one too, so that we can figure out who's going to our finals.
He did jump on a jet, though. That was pretty sweet.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll give you that one.
I'll take it.
All right, cool.
Okay.